War. Not exactly a new concept. At first, it was really about the coming of an empire. All the human kingdoms on the Icerian continent united under a single crown and a single religion. And in both cases, I can tell you they weren't just playing around. But the end result was there. The Emperor Damocles made humans his sword. It was when His Majesty decided he wanted to extend his influence to the southern lands that sparks began to fly. Because, well, the peoples of the south are beast-like green creatures 8 feet high, all muscle and nerves, with a natural-born talent for war. So, it figures they resisted. Despite besieging their villages, and even though the Imperial army was far better organized, the damned orcs fought back with savage rage, and their victories were the kind remembered for ages. But Damocles wasn't just gonna sit there and take it. Protecting their territory behind a giant wall, the Empire would never give up land, and its ruler wasn't planning on standing pat. With the construction of the wall, the scale of the war began to alarm the neighboring provinces. Faced with the Green Peril, the Empire saw the elves and the dwarves as potential allies. With their support, a quick victory over the Greenskins was a certainty, and peace could finally return to the Icerian continent. Afterwards, it just remained to be seen what kind of peace would await the vanquished. Over the decades of conflict, the orcs were already beginning to figure it out. They were much sought after for their strength and toughness, and so grinding slavery was always going to be the result. Submit or die. Needless to say, for a goblin like me, things were going to be just as bad. We were there to be had like rats in a trap. Yeah, it's not easy being a greenskin on this fucking continent. You got my sympathy if that's your case. The Butcher of Bay Harbor. Bunch of assholes. They made sure they didn't tell me who I was dealing with. They just gave me a name. Arkai. As if they'd even used it since that fucking battle. No point in wondering what the world would be like today if I'd had any freaking clue what was going on. I would have said no. First thing, no fucking way. But to be honest, I already knew it wasn't gonna be a walk in the park. The Bloodjaws never screw around. Cold as death and twice as savage. Fucking terrifying. But I was blinded by the smell of money, okay? I was gonna be really well paid just to play the guide and get the killing machine to the other side of the wall. And if everything went well, as a bonus, piles of those pale guys were gonna get killed. No kidding. Who could turn down a sweet deal like that? Huh. Should have seen the face on that big hunk of beef when he understood I wasn't just along for the ride. Seems the bastard went 3 days without sleeping or eating before he finally passed out. Woke up naked with his ass covered in bruises. But then, who hasn't done that, right? But it's hard when you're an orc who never drinks. Of course, that was nothing compared to what was waiting for him in the mire. That's where they all end up, enslaved by the humans, breaking rocks all day long, the rest of their lives. And that's the lucky ones. Hey, gotta say what's what. Whether it's with their f***ing wall or their giant towers, they still did a shitload of work. Anyway, I gotta say I screwed up that day. I never should have done it. It's the worst f*** up of my life, and I've had my share. I should have kicked myself in the ass for even thinking about accepting that f***ing contract. Well, we got through it though. But wait till you see at what cost. The rebels defended themselves well, but they were dead meat from the beginning. They were just there to act as a diversion long enough so we could pick up the pretty mage. The Imperials were gonna take back the tower in a hurry, and the reprisals would be legendary. A real massacre. What's more, we had to see the state of the magnificent mistress of the oceans we'd gotten out. Arkans wasn't gonna be of much help to us without the help of the other mages. We had to get her to one of their monasteries right away, before she f***ing died. And of course, it was days away, and my ass never froze so hard before. Or since. All that for a freaking damsel in distress. Total cliché when you think about it. But Ark was really into it. Nothing was gonna stop him. He knew he'd left lots of orcs to die in the past, including his father. But he was the only one left to finish the mission and put the Emperor down for good. And there was only Arkans to take him there. The Zealot got his hooks into us in a hurry. I guess he just followed Arkans somehow. We barely got out of there. The mages weren't so lucky. Kinda looks like everyone unlucky enough to cross our path ended up paying double, one way or another. Just had to hope that it would be the same story with Emperor Damocles once we got to the Island of Laments. The crossing wasn't exactly a breeze, but what they said about Arkans was true. Without her and her vision, we would never have made it to the island in one piece. The girl did her part. Now it was up to us. We had to get rid of the Emperor before he got the elves and the dwarves on his side, or the future of the Greenskins was gonna be one up nightmare. We hadn't even gotten back from the Island of Laments when Barman had himself crowned Emperor. The bastard didn't waste any time. Even some of the Inquisitors and human nobles were starting to ask questions, just not the right ones. Gotta say, if he had enough class to pay me, I would have given the guy a cookie. After all, I did my job. But of course, he didn't keep his word. Typical human. Ark took it bad. Ha! No kidding. We got everyone in shit. Deep. We had to go back to the tower and try to get back in touch with the resistance in the mire. What was left of them. At least we had the mages with us. Those guys can get into anyone's head and make them think whatever they want. It's not surprising the Inquisitors wanted them out of the way. They're not the kind that likes competition. Still, without them, I doubt we'd have ever found Attic and the others. And there you go. That was the job. Despite the unforeseen, the plan worked like a charm. Gotta say, what was gonna stop thousands of orcs who'd been promised blue sky? With Ark's dad leading them, best not get in their way. When they charged, it was like an earthquake. You couldn't even have heard yourself scream. At the same time, Attic and the mages set fire to the tower, both creating confusion and sending out a message to the entire Empire and the Inquisition. Something like, everything has a price, or live by the sword, die by the sword. Anyway, you get the idea. Something orcish. The moral of the story? I should have kicked myself in the ass for even thinking about taking the damn job, for fuck's sake. But I've been saying that from the start. It was worse for Arkai. Barman was a pile of mush, but his plan worked anyway. Soon the elf, human, and dwarf armies were going to attack the southern lands. Not that there hadn't always been problems, but we'd reached a critical point, and he knew it. He was right in the middle of all that shit. At least he found his father, and the strength to go back home and start over. He learned how to control his rage, sort of. At least he probably wouldn't kill his family. And I'll be there, the loyal soldier, stopping him from doing anything too stupid. Or at least trying. What? You think you could do better?